Hi, it's an absolute pleasure to bring greetings to everyone tuning in. Thank you so much to my good friend Deputy Mayor Thompson for hosting tonight's town hall. Friends, I'm excited to share that we've recently broken ground on the Scarborough subway extension. This is an exciting project will create thousands of jobs, reduce travel times, and improve the quality of life for the great people of Scarborough. I'm proud that our government is delivering on its promise to bring Scarborough the quality of transit that they need and deserve. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Thompson for leading the way, MPP Christina Midas for being absolute champions for the Scarborough subway in support of this vital project. I hope everyone has a great time this evening. Thank you and God bless.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have the opportunity to virtually join you for this event today. Right here at Queen's Park, we are certainly still riding the wave of excitement after yesterday's groundbreaking for the highly anticipated Scarborough subway extension. A significant milestone such as this doesn't come around every day. Since announcing the Premier's historic multi-billion-dollar subway plan in April 2019, not a day has passed where we haven't envisioned starting construction for better transit in Scarborough. I'd like to extend my sincerest gratitude to Deputy Mayor Michael Thompson, your colleagues at the City of Toronto, and all the senior officials for your ongoing support of our transit plan. The future Scarborough subway extension will help revive the local neighborhoods and surrounding area, something that is even more crucial following the past 15 months, which have been very difficult on everyone. We are building a subway that will create thousands of jobs, support local and regional economic growth, and most significantly, greatly reduce commute times for thousands of daily riders so hardworking people can get home sooner to spend more time with their loved ones. Our government has always known that we've had the right transit solutions for the Greater Toronto Area and has worked tirelessly to turn the vision into a reality. Now that we have the experienced team at Strabag on board, we have shovels in the ground and we're on track to enhancing the quality of life for the people of Scarborough. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today.
Thank you very much, Premier and Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on track. It's real. It's actually really happening. We are moving ahead. And yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending the groundbreaking and the announcement by Premier Ford and Mayor Tory and Minister Cho, along with my colleague, who I will be introducing in a moment, our MPP, Christina Midas. And so here are some photos that we had with the Premier and the Mayor yesterday. And maybe just move to the next one, please. Some more coming here. There's a photo with MPP Christina Midas, myself, Minister Sharma, and Surma, and also Minister Mulrooney. This was yesterday at the site. So you can see the equipment is in place. Things are in fact happening. So I'm really delighted to be here with you as one of those who have been championing an expansion for the subway for Scarborough for quite some time. Thinks it needs to connect with the city. And for that, the city has established an office, which is the Transit Expansion Office. It's expansion and infrastructure development, and that's the coordinating group in the city of Toronto. It's led by Derek Tiago, who is the executive director. And I'd like to ask Derek to come forward just to give us an overview, Derek, in terms of how your office works. How does that interact with all of the transit planning activities, exciting activities that are happening in the city of Toronto? Derek, good evening, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone on the call this evening, so thank you. As the Deputy Mayor indicated, the Transit Expansion Division is a newly formed division within the City of Toronto, whose responsibility is to lead the coordination of the multi-billion-dollar higher order transit projects that are occurring within the City of Toronto. So we are looking after a wide segment of a variety of different programs, from the rapid transit, which is the Eglinton Crosstown, that's currently into construction, right the way through to the subway program, of which the Scarborough subway extension is one of the major projects within that program. So we are the group that's responsible for the interaction with Metrolinx. We represent the city's best interests in the discussions with Metrolinx and the province. And our role is to effectively assist the city divisions, councillors, in ensuring that at the end of the day that we get the transit projects that have been identified, and that they do so with obviously the interaction with the community. So our role is to assist, is to lead on behalf of the city that coordination with our colleagues at Metrolinx and the province. So hopefully that's provides you enough information.
That's very helpful, Derek, but I just wanted to probe a little bit further. So you are that one-stop environment within the context of the city, and you then are you and your team are the folks that will reach out to planning and other city divisions who are responsible for connected into the transit expansion, transit development process. You facilitate that communication and that connection.
That's correct. That's correct. As you're aware, there are a lot of different divisions who have different needs, and we work very closely with them to ensure that when Metrolinx is putting out a contract, that the requirements from the various city divisions have been included within the documents, the bidding documents. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is so much good things that is actually coming to our community. Transit is a necessity for a variety of reasons. People to get to work, get to appointments, get home on time, reduce the gridlock that otherwise would occur if you're traveling in traffic. Now, obviously the subway is not going to be built overnight. It's going to be some time yet down the road. And I won't steal the thunder of Michael Hodge, who's from Metrolinx, and I will ask Michael to come in momentarily, but just to start. So there's a tremendous amount of work that's being done and will be done, so that many answers will be provided to you. It's going to take, I know that the sort of dates that they've been talking about, it's probably about a 9-year plan to build it full out. And what I'm excited about, what we saw yesterday, is the work that's actually taking place to start that planning and to start that actual construction work. So, I'm excited to say it's really happening. I know that we are probably 40 years behind. But the problem, in as much as we're 40 years behind, and some people from varying places have said, well, spending too much money in Scarborough, I think our community is worth it. I think it's important for us to invest in the infrastructure that we need for the future of our community, and to connect in the overall ecosystem of transit that is the city of Toronto that's being built. And I'm really excited of the leadership of Premier Ford, Mayor Tory, Minister Cho, and of course our MPP, Christina Midas. And I'm very happy that we are seeing the investment in our community. And so what I'd like to do now, I'd like to ask Michael Hodge, who is the program sponsor for the Scarborough Subway Expansion Project, to come forward, give a presentation, and then we will get into the question and answer. And I see the chat's going, and so I will look at the chat and see if I can pick up some more of the questions that you asked. So, Michael, thank you very much, and welcome. Over to you. You're still muted there. One more time. Yeah, you will. There you go. You're unmuted. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Michael.
I get permission to be unmuted. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for inviting us to tonight's town hall. Nice to see you here as well tonight, Derek. Your team is a huge assistance to us in working on this project and facilitating all of the work that we're doing to build this project. I'll walk through the presentation. I know we've got some time for questions and answers afterwards, but I'll try to hit on as many details here as I can in the presentation. On the right-hand side of the map here, there is a map of the Scarborough alignment. So starting from the Kennedy Station and then proceeding along Eglinton, moving up Danforth Road to the new station that we will build at Lawrence and McCowan, and then proceeding north up to Scarborough Centre. And then finally, the third new station that will be built at Shepherd and McCowan. So we're building a total of 3 new stations for the Scarborough extension. It will be approximately 7.8 kilometers in length, and we expect to attract about 105,000 daily users of this new subway extension. We're also going to be creating jobs by building this project, and we'll have jobs within walking distance of these stations. And the total cost of the project is approximately $5.5 billion, and the in-service date is planned for 2029, 2030. And the subway extension is also going to create new connections to other transit lines as well, such as many TTC bus routes. So we're building bus terminals at each of our stations to bring customers into the stations and also to move within Scarborough. There's a future Durham Region bus rapid transit line planned that will be serving Scarborough Centre. We have GO train service at Kennedy Station, and of course the future Crosstown LRT. So the big news, as Deputy Mayor Michael Thompson said, was yesterday. We had a groundbreaking event up at the launch shaft site, which is where we will be launching the tunnel boring machine. And we've awarded the contract to build this tunnel to a company called Strawbag. And they've been on the site up at Shepherd and McCowan for the last several weeks. They've been preparing the site. They've been doing some building demolitions. And to see how much that site has changed in just a couple of months is something else. That was the site of a couple of car dealerships previously. We now have lots of equipment on the site and preparing the site for the tunnel boring machine. This is just another map of the subway route, but the key things here that I would point out are the blue box on the far right of the image. That's the tunnel boring machine launch shaft up at Shepherd and McCowan. And that's where the machine that builds the tunnel will start. And it's going to go south along the route, which is primarily, almost entirely under the road of McCowan and Danforth, and then Eglinton. And then the yellow box at Eglinton and Midland is where the tunnel boring machine will stop its journey and will be extracted. We're building the project using 2 major contracts. So the first one is the one I've just spoken about, which is the advanced tunnel contract. And we'll be procuring a separate contract to build the actual stations and to build the railway and the systems inside the tunnel itself. These are just a couple of pictures of the launch shaft site at Shepherd and McCowan. So there was lots of demolition activity happening over the last couple of months. That is primarily finished now, and the site is now ready for construction. And this is what the site looks like today. We have piling rigs on site that are drilling the piles that are beginning to form the concrete walls that will become the launch shaft for the tunnel boring machine in the first instance. And eventually, that same launch shaft will also become the station box for the future subway station that we're building at this site. The tunnel boring machine itself is being manufactured right now in Germany, and it will be shipped over to Canada and will arrive on site in early 2022. These are a couple of images of the tunnel boring that took place on the Crosstown project. The big difference for Scarborough is that we're building only a single tunnel. So we will have one tunnel that's much bigger than the 2 twin tunnels that you see in the image on the left. It's 12 meters in diameter, so it's a very significant size, large enough for both directions of the subway train to travel in. So it will be a single tunnel subway system. And the tunnel boring machine, or TBM, will operate 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, but it moves very, very slowly. It only moves about 10 meters a day. And it's a multi-purpose sectioning machine. It builds the tunnel, and then it drills the tunnel, or it kind of bores the hole for the tunnel. And at the same time, it leaves behind the concrete tunnel liners, which you can see on the right-hand side. And those are what give the shape of the tunnel. So it bores and builds the tunnel in one movement. This is just a timeline to give you a sense of where the project is at. We're here at spring, summer 2021, where we've awarded that first contract, the tunnel contract. We plan to begin procurement of the next contract, which is the stations, railway, and systems contract in summer, fall 2020. And as I said, the estimated in-service date is 2029, 2030. That timeline is obviously crunched a little bit because we have 9 years of construction in between. But the one key point I would just highlight here is that we will have ongoing public engagement, such as being here tonight, as well as having virtual town halls that we host. And hopefully one day we'll have in-person open houses again throughout the life of this project. And just on this last slide, we have all the different ways you can reach us. We have our website. We have an email address, which is torontoeast@metrolinx.com. We have a phone number. And we also have a newsletter that gets mailed out weekly, and you can subscribe to that newsletter through any one of these means. And that is the end of the presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michael, for that. And I'll just get right into the questions now that folks have submitted, and I'll get to the chat in a moment to get some questions from there as well. So through you, Michael, whose project is this? Is this a City of Toronto project, or is this a Province of Ontario Metrolinx project?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's a Metrolinx project in the sense that Metrolinx is building the project and is responsible for the planning and construction of the project through the province of Ontario. But the province is funding it. The federal government is also funding this project. And we work very, very closely with the City of Toronto because the subway is really a city building project as well. So we have a very close relationship with the City of Toronto, as well as the TTC in planning and in building this project to make sure it serves the needs of Toronto residents.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Another question is the project ready to go to construction, or is there still design and permitting work being done?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's, as I said, it's being built using 2 major contracts, and that first contract has been awarded. We've had the groundbreaking event, the machinery is on site, and so the project is very much under construction and has begun. Because we're building it using two contracts, the next contract is still in planning, still in design, still in sort of a fairly early stage as we work through, as you said, permitting, environmental regulations. We do a lot of due diligence before we build these projects. So that means drilling into the ground, testing the soil, testing groundwater, making sure we know what the conditions are that are present before we begin construction. So there's still significant work in design for the stations, the subway tunnel, so the train tracks, the signals, as well as the stations themselves.
Okay, thank you. I know that we have former councillor Glenn de Vermerker was with us. Glenn, I just saw your name popped up. Good evening, and thank you so much for being with us. You have been one of those drivers who work with me and others to advance this this desire to expand the subway, and so thank you very much for that, Glenn. Michael, can you tell me, because I think that I've seen a question in the chat, there's an impression that there has not been a lot of communications and or community meetings on the subway expansion and so on. Can you tell us how many, I don't know if you have it off the top of your head, how many meetings, but there has been a lot of meetings to discuss this plans with community members, would you not say?
Yeah, I mean, just in the past few months, I think we've hosted at least 3 virtual town halls. But that's only in the very recent sort of past. I know we've been doing consultations. We had in-person consultations on the environmental project report just prior to the pandemic sort of breaking out in Canada. So those were in person, and that was back in March of 2020. And prior to that, I know the city has had consultations because at one time this was the City of Toronto and TTC project. And so the consultations, I think, have been numerous over the years.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Michael, I'm just going to basically just vary the questioning for a quick moment because I understand my colleague in our local MPP, Christina Midas, has joined us. So Christina, I'm going to bring you in and just to ask you to say hello to everyone, please. That video is now evidence in an assault case against Detective Hutchinson in ongoing trial. Hi, Christina. You're still muted.
Unmute. Can you hear me now? No. Nope, it's muting. Oh, there we go. Hi, sorry, I was saying the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves. I apologize for that.
No worries, there you are.
But I'm so sorry. I actually didn't end up having a link. I couldn't get on everyone. I'm so sorry, but we got it all sorted out. I'm glad to be here joining all of you, and I don't want to take away from the experts speaking, but I'm certainly here if there are any provincial questions that I can answer. But I know that Deputy Mayor Thompson and I are both very, very excited this is finally happening. It's been a long time coming, and I remember going to high school at Thompson, and this was actually being spoken about then, and that was a while ago. I won't tell you exactly how long, but we're very excited to finally see all 3 levels of government working together and see this come to fruition. And with that, I will hand it back to the experts, and I'm here for anything that you need as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christina. And I'm going to come back to you towards the end, maybe just to give some closing remarks and so on. So, Michael, just more questions that I have here that's been submitted. What is the construction phasing plan and what is the schedule for the different construction phases?
Oh, that's a great question. And I've got a couple of my colleagues here tonight. So I hope I can pass the mic over to Mark Chavarro, who's our Vice President of Project Delivery. And Mark is responsible for the construction aspect of building this project. So he can help answer that question.
Fantastic. Mark, let's go over to Mark. And just bear with us, folks, just in terms of the transition.
That worked quite seamlessly. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, and thanks, Mike, for that presentation. So the question about staging, it's a great question. And the straw bag work starting at Shepherd and McCowan is happening now. It's starting. I think some of us saw that yesterday when we were up at the launch site. So they are currently excavating the launch shaft. Which is, if you can picture the foundation of a condo building, it's a big open cut into the ground, and then the machine will be brought and lowered in to that hole. It's about 28 meters deep, so it's going to take probably till the early part of next year to have that excavated, and then the machine will arrive and be assembled. So the tunneling work, I think Mike had the statistic there of progressing at about 15 meters a day. That's a 4-year project to get the tunnel started at the Shepherd and McCowan and then take it the 7 kilometers down to Midland and Eglinton. The remaining pieces of the puzzle, of course, are the stations. So each of the 3 stations, and then there's the final connection from Midland, Eglinton to Kennedy Station. That will be connected through another excavation that will bring the tunnel all the way to Kennedy Station. The TTC has also requested the construction of a pocket track in that location, and that's a 3rd track which allows them operational flexibility to move trains into different service patterns depending on demand. So if they want to run every other train to Shepherd and McCowan, or change the frequency in different parts of line 2, that gives them the flexibility. So the stations and that piece that I was just describing, those will really start in earnest in 2024, 2025, and they'll carry through to 2029 and 30. So it's multiple phases though, and it's not all sort of open cut or other very disruptive activities. The road will get decked over at certain points in time, and then traffic can be restored and construction will continue below ground out of the way. So that's a very broad schedule for you, but I don't want to take up all the time talking through the details.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And as Michael has indicated, we have a long way to go, and there's going to be a lot of meetings, updates, and so on ongoing for members of the public. I had another question. This is from the chat. The question is that there is, I guess, there needs to be some clarity and greater understanding in terms of how the McCowan subway is going to connect with the Scarborough Town Center and the surrounding area. There's a question in terms of how the bus terminal is going to be connected, and that people want to find out if they're going to have to walk outdoors to get to the Scarborough Town Center, or will there be an underground connection?
Yeah, so that's a good question about how we're sort of planning our bus terminal. The station will be located, and the tunnel itself is on McCowan, so it is some distance from where the mall is today. But we also know that that area is going to develop and change over time, and I think the subway is going to bring on some of that development. So how far outdoors people will have to walk in the future will probably change over time, but there won't be that same direct connection into the mall that we have at the Scarborough Rapid Transit station today. So that will change, but we are planning a really tremendous sort of hub at Scarborough Centre that will serve a lot of bus passengers. We know that bus passengers, there's a tremendous amount of them coming into the station here and transferring onto the subway, but also exiting the system and going into the Scarborough Centre community, whether it's for shopping or the offices and the workplaces around there. So ensuring there's a good connection between buses and subway and also to the community is part of our planning work that we're doing.
Okay, that's great. More questions about the actual construction, Michael. And this question is with respect to the construction. Will it be open cut or just all underground drilling? And where are the tunnel shafts going to be? I think you've talked a little bit about that, but it's a question. So I wonder if you can just revisit that rather quickly.
Sure, I can talk about where the tunnel shafts are. So that's the launch shaft, and that's the bigger of the two sites. Will be at Shepherd and McCowan. So that's entirely off the road and limited to our construction site where the groundbreaking event was yesterday. The extraction shaft is at Eglinton and Midland. And because the tunnel at that point is right under Eglinton, that is also where the extraction shaft will be. So what we're going to do there is have traffic realignment so that we will be able to open up the road and pull the pump boring machine when it's completed, while maintaining traffic on Eglinton. So Eglinton traffic will be diverted around the shaft that we build and open up.
Fantastic, thank you. Derek, I'm going to pose a question for you if I could, and I know we hadn't asked you this or set it up at all, but the concern that many people have is the impact on our road system and so on because of the way, as Michael just discussed, where the shaft is and so on. Can you give us an understanding as part of the work that your office is doing and the interaction with Metrolinx and transportation and so on? What are the sort of concerns that you and your team have, and how are you mitigating some of these issues with respect to vehicle buses traveling in and around the area?
Great, that's a great question, Deputy Mayor. So first off, one of the things that we require of Metrolinx is for them to and they're ultimately they're contracted to produce a traffic management plan This is one of the submittals that they will have to prepare for us. And that submittal, when it comes in, will actually describe how they will propose to divert traffic, where it's going to go, kind of where the restrictions will be. That's going to be shared with our colleagues in transportation services. So that's Barbara Gray's group, who will then be able to provide comment and feedback on this. And then that feedback will then be provided back to Metrolinx, so that if there are any adjustments that need to be made with regards to how traffic is dealt with, that's the mechanism that we will use to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. There was a question, and I know you talked a little bit about it, Michael, earlier, the costs, but I think there's a sort of more granular component of that question. Folks wanted to know what the contributions governments are putting in. And I think you've sort of touched on it, but I just wonder if you could just revisit that rather quickly for me. Michael, are you there?
There we go. Yes, the announced cost of the project is 5.5 billion. We do have a federal contribution and a provincial contribution. So that's sort of the breakdown between the province and the feds are both contributing to this project, and the total cost is $5.5 billion.
Okay, all right, thank you. I wanted just to come back again to this because I've had another question sort of posing it a little different way. People are concerned about the design and the functionality of right now it's just McCowan Station, and I guess part of the reasons that a lot of people on this call live in that general area. Of course, there are people from elsewhere in the ward as well that are a part of the call, but there seem to be, and Michael, you touched on it about, we'll see what happens with respect to additional development that will take place. Are you saying then that additional development that will take place will create that connector? The question that people have is, why can we not have some type of connection that connects right into the Scarborough Town Center and by extension into the Scarborough Civic Center?
I think Michael was having technical issues. He's
all right. Is that Mark?
So yeah, it is Mark. So I'll jump in and take that on. I think if folks are interested, I think both the City of Toronto and Oxford, who are the owners of the mall, have put forward relatively impressive redevelopment plans for the Scarborough Center area. I know the city is continuing to refine those plans based on the subway that's coming. So if you do look at Oxford's plans, they look to, as many mall owners and developers have done, urbanize their mall. And I think we're looking at that and looking to work with them very closely to make the best connection possible between the subway and the mall, as it's obviously the hub of Scarborough Centre. The only other thing I think I would say to this is as the station is built and then the area begins to develop further, you may see a shifting of the center more towards the subway. And there is, as I think folks who live in the community know, lots of land and development opportunity around there. So we are focused on making a good connection to the mall and to the existing area, but also opening up opportunity for further economic growth in Scarborough Centre.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There's a question with respect to this guaranteeing that taxpayers will not be on the hook for obviously costs overrun and delayed with respect to the P3. Can you speak to the public-private partnership arrangement that is being talked about for this line? And you talked a little bit about the fact that federal and provincial monies are in there, but is there a P3 component as well? That's the question I have here.
Yep, I can answer that quickly, and if Mike's back on, he can sub on for anything that I've missed. The tunnel contract is a design build finance, so that's a P3. It is a fixed price contract of $757 million. And so that includes some contingency funds that are known to the contractor and us that we use to cover anything that's unknown that they may discover while tunneling. And tunneling, of course, does have risks. It's underground, and we aren't able to determine exactly what's in every square inch or centimeter of land that it's going to travel through. So that's the protection on that contract. We are still working on the second contract. I think Mike mentioned that. We're developing and designing it right now. And we're actually looking at other contracting models apart from P3s. That might bring in more information, more expertise from the contracting community to help us better balance the risk and avoid cost overruns that we've seen on other projects. So we're actively exploring that, and I think there'll be more news about that in the coming months.
Fair enough. So it's a work in progress then. Another question that has been posed in the chat, the question is, how will the train cross the 401? What is the connection there, and how will that work?
Yeah, so as you go up McCowan, you pass the Concilium Place office complex. At that point in time, the alignment, and this is covered in our environmental assessment. So for those looking to do some additional research, you can find that on our website. The alignment comes up McCowan, and then it veers to the right if you're going north, and skirts beside the Concilium buildings. And then it crosses the 401 to the east of McCowan Road. So working very closely with MTO, we want to avoid going under the bridge and the bridge abutments. It's a sensitive structure. So we're probably 20 meters east of the bridge. And then the alignment swings back under McCowan after you clear the on-ramp, off-ramps on the east side there.
And so how will, at the Lawrence stations, you have 3 stations, you have Lawrence, you have McCowan and Shepherd. At the Lawrence station, there is the creek that's there. How will the engineering work to address that? Because it would seem that you're going really much deeper than you otherwise would in the areas to the north and south. Would that be correct in that assessment?
Absolutely. That's one of the deepest points of the alignment, Deputy Mayor. And we also took on board all of the engineering expertise and research that the TDC undertook when they were project managing this project. We actually also took on their consulting engineers and brought over a number of staff. So we have the history from all of the good work that the TDC did on this. They studied numerous options at that specific location. Could they go over the creek? Could the alignment be on the east side of the road? Could it be on the west side of the road? And it was determined that the best course of action was to go deep and to go under the creek. So this is another area that's sensitive to us, and we're working with the TRCA and our contractor Strawbag to make sure that that crossing is done effectively. We have about one diameter of, and this is not to get too technical, but one diameter of tunnel depth. That's the sort of minimum cover that you want when you're doing tunneling. Otherwise, you have a risk of the earth heaving up when you're tunneling. So we're at that level. And then when the machine passes by, there's survey there, which is continuous essentially when you're going by a sensitive area or structure. And then the pilot of the TBM also manages the pressure of the face and the speed of the machine to manage those sensitive crossings. So that's how we're going to approach that.
Okay, that's terrific. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question, and Derek, you can jump in on this if you'd like. So is there going to be a connection into the hospital from the Lawrence station? And the following the next question that I have for you, how will the current bus terminal at the Scarborough Town Center connect with respect to the subway, or will there be a change or a shift of, will there be a building of a new bus terminal as there were plans some time ago for that? So I don't know, Derek, I don't know if you wanted to jump in and add a few comments there, and then I'll turn it over to Mark. And then I have Christina want to ask a question after.
I can go first just to make it easier for Derek, because I'm probably a bit closer to the details. But I'll leave a little space for Derek to jump in.
All right, thanks.
Connection to the hospital. We are planning an entrance exit on the northwest corner of Lawrence and McCowan. Working very closely with the hospital there. We do have to dismantle part of their driveway on the far east side of their building. So we're in a partnership with them on doing that. So they will be able to connect to that. But there's like I said, a direct entrance exit on their property essentially. So that answers that question. And then the current bus terminal, I believe Mike did cover that a little bit, but it might not have picked up because I think his internet was acting up. He has switched to his phone, so it's probably a bit clearer now if he wants to correct anything I say. But it is a new bus terminal that we are planning to the east of McCowan, north of Triton, or sorry, north of Grangeway, and south of Progress. And so that will be directly adjacent to the subway box that will be in McCowan Road.
Fair enough. Derek, did you want to add anything? Because I guess one of the concerns would be about the number of buses going through in that area, especially people on the east side of McCowan, and just wanted to see if you wanted to add any comments to that.
So yes, thank you for that question. So as Mark indicated, there is work that's going on currently between the TTC and the transit planning staff within the City of Toronto to determine the location. That the location of the bus terminal is as Mark suggested, right near the station box, and it is intended to be a fairly sizable bus terminal that will allow for that connection into the subway that's occurring. So right now, what's going on is there's discussions about how buses will access into and egress out of the bus terminal where it's located at the station entrance. So that's one of the things that's currently, as I think Mike was mentioning previously, there's that design development that's still going on. That's part of the discussions that we're currently having with, and the TTC are currently having with Metrolinx in that location.
Fair enough. I'll just turn it over to Christina now. Christina.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. So I just wanted to ask, I know that Michael and I are both very committed to keeping the community informed on everything that is going on. But in addition to joining types of and another question that I want to start with me yesterday, so we can let our community members on the call know as well. What type of advanced planning are you doing to ensure that there is minimal disruption? Because we know we did see a fair amount of disruption in the crosstown.
Michael?
There we go. I've been allowed to unmute again. I only caught the second part of your question. So I will answer about the disruption. One thing we do is we require our contractor to provide notices to community whenever they're doing work and whenever that work changes. So if there's new things to be seen or heard or experienced, we always provide advance notice of that work. And of course, there's always a line into us for questions and queries and complaints as well, of course, when things aren't as described or aren't as expected, so that we can get on top of that and deal with those issues. We also try to address construction works as things progress, and over the next number of years, we will continue to host open houses, and that's where we will also share plans and designs as they become more available. And that includes traffic reroutes and traffic realignment and any management we have to do with traffic. So that's, I don't know if we can get the first question through to me. Be happy to try and answer that as well. But
yeah, just the first part of your question, Christina.
I think the first and the second were similar. The second was on disruptions and what advanced planning you're doing on minimizing disruptions this time. I guess essentially what lessons have been learned from the crosstown. But the first question was in a similar vein, just how you're going to keep the community involved, in addition to town halls such as this that are put together by members of different levels of government.
So perhaps Deputy Mayor, if I could just add just further to where Mike was going with this. So we've been working very closely with Metrolinx on the Eglinton Crosstown, and you're quite right. There has been a significant amount of disruption to local businesses and the community as that project was going through. The one thing that we have been working with Metrolinx on is looking at different approaches to mitigate the effect of the transit going through the corridor. And Metrolinx has taken various steps to address some of the concerns that have been raised. And as the Eglinton Crosstown is now coming towards its conclusion, we are in discussions with the Metrolinx team that's looking after the rapid transit program to do exactly what you said, is that knowledge transfer, that lessons learned on how different ways that we can mitigate or that Metrolinx can mitigate the effect of the construction while it's occurring. And this will be applied not only to Scarborough Subway, but also to the other subway programs as well.
Thank you very much for that. There's a question that just popped up and I just saw a little bit of it. I didn't see the whole detail, but I think that the question was, how will the soil that's being removed from the tunnel be disposed of?
I'd be happy to answer that, Deputy Mayor. Sure. The tunneling machine, I think as Mike described, it's essentially a moving factory, cutting, consuming, spitting out the soil, the back end, and installing tunnel liners. And as the tunnel machine progresses south, it's going to extend its conveyor back to Shepherd and McCowan. So at one point, we'll have an almost 7-kilometer conveyor bringing the spoils, the muck, the dirt out of the tunnel. That will then be stored and separated at the Shepherd and McCowan site in sort of contained, we call them muck pits, and they will be trucked off that site. We did look into the opportunity for using trains because the CP line is, of course, directly north. And I think we did make that available to our contractor. However, I believe that they made the economic choice to seek the trucking route. So they'll have a right in, right out process there, and traffic again working with Derek and his team to ensure that it's a safe movements for those vehicles.
Thank you very much for that. I know that we're fast approaching 7 o'clock. My word, it's almost an hour already. We're just getting started. But my final question that just came in, someone wants to confirm that the TTC will operate and maintain the subway line when it's completed. They want to know if it's the TTC or Metrolinx.
Yep, that's a great question, Deputy Mayor. The TTC will operate the trains in the subway tunnel, so there'll be TTC drivers on the trains. And there will also be a component of maintenance that the TTC will be responsible for in the tunnels. Because they're operating trains, it also makes sense for them to continue operating work in the tunnel. Yep.
Fantastic. Again, this one just came in, and I think it's an important one considering the problems and challenges that businesses have been going through. The question is, will there be any compensation for small businesses should they suffer any loss? And another component part of it, Metrolinx has issued a notice to landowners close to the track site that they should be notified. They should notify Metrolinx before any sort of construction or any activities take place on their land. Can you speak to those two specific things? And then I'll get my colleague Christina Midas just to comment, the closing remarks, and I'll close up. Thank you very much.
So the transit corridor designation letters did go out to all properties within a certain area of the corridor. And there's nothing the property owner has to do when they submit for a building permit, for instance, for a small project. Metrolinx will get circulated on that process, and we have an opportunity to comment. And so that's one way in which say a residential property owner might be affected by those letters. And we've had virtual town halls to help educate those. And of course, if there are questions, they can always be submitted to us through any of those emails, phone numbers, website forums, and we're happy to respond on specific questions. On the matter of business disruption, we do everything we can to avoid that, of course. We don't provide compensation directly for businesses that would argue they've lost money or revenue due to the project, but we do everything we can to communicate and avoid those disruptions where possible.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I just add quickly?
No, go ahead, please, Mark.
Yeah, I think it's an important topic, so I really wanted to just make sure we land on a couple other points here. We have tried, and this might be a tailing question or answer to MPP Midas's question as well. We've tried very hard on this project to stay off the roadway. So the place where we are on the roadway, there are a couple. It's Lawrence McCowan, and it's down at Kennedy and the Midland Eglinton area. But for the most part, we're trying to avoid disruption. We're also trying to work where we can realign the road to ensure traffic is maintained and disruption is minimized to businesses and driveways, et cetera. So that's already a lesson learned from Crosstown, and that we're trying hard with our design to not get into situations where we're impacting small businesses. And just I guess the other part from Mike's answer as well is that if a business does believe that it has been affected by the project, there is a process to go through where they can seek compensation. So it's not necessarily a fund that's available to come and access, but there is a process to come through and prove that there has been an effect, and that goes through a quasi adjudication process.
Okay, thank you so much. Christina, we are at the end. I can't believe it. There's just so much more. That just means that we're going to have more of these events, bringing Derek, Michael, and Mark and others on to be able to answer the questions. And we've had about 80 people on the call tonight. And so that shows there's a great interest. So Christina, I'll just maybe turn it over to you just to offer some closing remarks and so on. And yeah, we'll unmute your mic. We're just getting the back office to work on going through that. As you can see, they've had to go through a lot of information and so on. So it's coming forward. You're unmuted now, Christina. I know you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
There we go. Thank you to Derek, Mark, and Michael for being here. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for putting this one together. We will definitely do more joint town halls and work together. I think we can assure everybody here that we're very committed to getting this done. We're working as a team, and we were actually together, a number of us, at the tunnel launch shaft site yesterday. And there are actually shovels and huge machinery in the ground. So it really is happening. And I think just to touch on my question on lessons learned from the Crosstown, I think that it's very important that we've learned lessons. I think that they have been learned, and I can attest to the fact that, I've been spoken to about the open cut that's going to occur at Midland, and it's years away, but it's something that we're already thinking about now, and we're already thinking about how to mitigate the disturbances and work with the community to work around any issues that arise. So I think that that's very important. I think that everybody is engaged at all levels, and we're certainly going to do everything we can to keep the community engaged, involved, and get your input every single step of the way. So thank you again, Deputy Mayor, for including me, and I look forward to doing more of these and working with everyone on this.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's such a great pleasure working with you always on so many different projects which we have worked on, and I look forward to us continuing to do so on behalf of the residents here in Scarborough Center. Michael, Mark, and Derek, I want to say that I'm really excited And part of my excitement isn't just the fact that we've been working for many years to try to get this extension built, but it is that I've been working with all of you now for some time, and I'm excited at your professionalism, at your abilities, at your skill set, and the level of expertise that you bring to the table. And I want members of my community to feel that excitement, because we have some phenomenal professionals that are working on this and are looking at it from the perspective of how will this work in the best interests of everyone in the community and so on. So I'm delighted that you join us here this evening, and I know that we will be having future meetings with all of you to provide updates to members of the community. And so members of the community, I want to thank you so much for being here with us this evening. You've learned a little bit about the fact that we will see access for people, some 38,000 people will be within walking distance of this new built out extension of the Bloor Danforth line. We will see access to some 34,000 jobs or jobs in the area, and 52,000 new users will ride this system on a daily basis. One of the things that we didn't really discuss this evening is the benefit, the greenhouse aspect. There will be, if you will, a yearly reduction of some 10,000 tons of greenhouse gas that will be reduced from the environment. And I think that's a great thing for the community. And so I'm really excited. We're going to work hard. There's more questions that I hadn't gotten through tonight, and I will do my best to get to them and provide them on our website. There is a lot of work that's being done with the TTC and the SRT in terms of how we will actually create the flow of traffic for residents who, as we decommission the SRT. But I can say that this is exciting days for Scarborough, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work on your behalf to obviously, and along with Christina, to advance this. So I want to thank my staff and Keisha Francis, who was behind the scenes of running this meeting. Thank you very much, Keisha, Ihor, Debbie, and John from my team. And thank you very much to all of you members of the community who've come out to tonight's meeting. And I want to wish you well. And I know that as we move forward, as we get out of this pandemic, we will all be working to ensure that our community is better for everyone. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. All the best. Yes, it's really happening. I can see that picture. Thank you, Keisha.
You're welcome, Deputy Mayor.